Fab, thank you so much for making the time. So we were just talking about Kevin's our guard, but he also worked for a lot of different news stations. You know, he passed from a shooting not too far from here, and you know, it's been a very violent month, and you responded to this on your Instagram. Tell me what has been going through your mind recently that made you want to reach out to the chief?
Well, it's been a violent year. The numbers that we're dealing with as far as the murders and robberies are through the roof, and we haven't seen these in almost a decade, close to a little over a decade to what's going on. But it just goes to show, like when the real estate dip happened, there was a big crash in the market. A lot of people were getting in a frenzy. Are kind of like the same times now. Like there was a lot of money available in the streets, and then it was taken away. So now poverty is forcing people to act out of needs of survival and desperate measures, desperate times. And this is just a reflection of the times that we're living in. Me reaching out to the police, to the chief of police, was the chief. LaRon Armstrong is someone who's been a mentor in my life for several years, who would, from mentoring the PAL basketball leagues when we were children, and we would play in the police leagues that we were playing basketball leagues that the police would fund. He would always be one of the directors and guys that would make sure that those things would be facilitated. So a lot of the young guys that were in the streets or at-risk youth, he would bring us in to play basketball and mentor us from a young age. And there was always talk to it. He and I would be like, man, one day when you gonna run for chief of police, man, you gonna be the chief and I'm gonna be the mayor and we're gonna change Oakland. And you know, those were childhood dreams that I would have, and those were conversations that he and I would have. And the other day, we just was like, let's create a conversation, even if it's an uncomfortable conversation to outsiders that may be looking in, trying to figure out what it is that we're actually talking about. But let's figure it out and let's sit up and set up some opportunities, because what we're dealing with is lack of opportunity, lack of belief, transitioning from some of these kids that are going to 16, 17, now they're in adulthood and life becomes hard. Some of these children are foster children or growing up in, orphanages and group homes and things like that. And when they turn 18, they're let loose to the streets. They're at risk. They're at risk of poverty swallowing them up. They're at risk to being homeless, being inmates. And most of these kids are just looking for a chance, something that they never had.
I noticed on your Instagram post you said you want to change the narrative of Oakland. What is the narrative of Oakland right now as you see it?
Get it how you live. The narrative right now would be get it how you live.
What does that mean?
When you say get it how you live, it's whatever you're doing. If you're homeless, you're going to get it from a garbage can, or you're going to get it from asking somebody or panhandling. If you in the streets and you are under the desperate times of where it's either eat or starve, you're gonna rob somebody, you're gonna steal. If you're from, if you're street pharmaceuticals, you're gonna sell whatever you have to sell. It's just the mentality, and it's a cutthroat mentality. Survival. And before we begin to judge the individuals that are surviving, we must understand the systems that have forced this type of mentality upon them. It's an unfortunate situation when someone is in a compromising situation where it's, do I eat or do I starve? Life or death. We can't say someone's wrong if their only option to do what they did was life or death. That's a difficult judgment.
And you quoted Tupac. You said it's not other people killing us, it's us killing us.
Most definitely. Tupac had a song called Changes. And to me, it's one of the most, it speaks of so much reality in today's time. And we talk about the lines all through that song. But the biggest thing that he talks about in that song is about mankind holding accountability for their actions. The black man in America, instead of saying, oh, they got us like this, they doing this, they got us, man, we locked up. We taking the initiative to say, let's take accountability for what we have indulged in and what we have participated in. There's a line on the song that says, I made a G today. And he says, but you made it in a sleazy way. Selling dope to the kids. I gotta get paid. Well, that's the way it is. And the vulnerability that he addressed on that song to say, I'm questioning the acts of my own people, even something that I may be involved in. But I'm putting it in front of our faces to say, now is the time for us to realize, how long will we continue to participate in the poisons without the excuses of saying, oh man, they got us like this. They doing this, they doing that. Something that troubles me, and it's very baffling for me to grasp, is the fact of when law enforcement kills us, we're in a major uproar, as we should be, because they're set to protect us, and the law enforcement aren't supposed to kill the community members. Of course not. But we create a huge uproar. But why are we silent when members of our community kill members of our community? Where's the uproar? And most people refuse to make these uproars because they're afraid that they could potentially be next. Me sitting down with the police chief wasn't for any criminal research. I had no plans on involving myself in any criminal research. The police will do their job as police officers.
Yeah.
Our main objective of sitting down was for community restoration, of what can we do to restore integrity, restore morality, faith, hope. And one of the biggest things in the community that most of the children lack is a fair chance. Just to have a fair chance to even the playing fields, however that may be. Now, when the power of our influencers combine, we can create those fair chances. But if we are separate and we all have our own entities and everybody's trying to blame someone else, we'll miss out on the opportunity to do something that will be remembered.
I know you're doing your part in this community. You have toy drives, you have your Dope Era Academy. Was he receptive to that idea of building the community, investing in our youth?
Most definitely. I'm one of those children that came from a program that he once implemented and almost was at the chairman of that, at the PAL programs. And several of my friends grew up playing sports. We played Babe Ruth, we played Pop Warner, we played PAL, we played Night League and these midnight basketball leagues. And most of these things were facilitated by programs that law enforcement funded. So when we propose the thought of an academy that doesn't take the traditional route of curriculum. We're not here to talk about social science and who Christopher Columbus was, or in 1607 slavery, blacks. No, we're here to talk about things that are current, that can help these children instantly. We're in here talking about computer coding. We're talking about crypto mining. We're talking about real estate, facilitating agriculture, sustainable living. We're talking about creating courses and trade classes that can help these kids now. We want to be able to create self-defense programs for our young girls. We want to be able to implement these things in this academy where this is an after-school program, more so like an elective, and it's open to the community. And it can be funded by not only members of the community, but by institutions and corporations that have all of these allocated funds that they don't use to come back into the community that affects it most.
Or the police department.
Great funds, a lot of funds.
So this academy is new, correct? It
Right.
hasn't launched yet. I think I saw you're accepting applications.
Right.
So this was born this year out of this idea of let's raise up our youth, let's teach our kids how to stay out of trouble.
This has been a lifetime dream of mine. I was listening to some music that I made when I was about 17, which seems like so long ago. And in the song, I said something like, the song was called "What Would I Do If I Made It Big," and one of the lines was like, "What would I do if I made it big? I buy a Boys and Girls Club for the neighborhood kids." That's always been a dream of mine. A club. When I grew up, we had Boys and Girls Clubs that were available to all of the kids in the community. Not just if you had good grades or if you came from this family or, you know, nowadays there's so many restrictions that most of the kids, and, you know, it's like requirements. It's like, I don't fit that. Or the judging of saying, oh, you can't come in here like that. You can't dress like that. You know, we have the nothing against the programs from the churches and the pastors and things of that nature. But there are a lot of restrictions when you deal with some of the programs in the communities that the churches offer. And it actually deters a lot of the young guys away from it because they're like, man, I don't want to go in there. I want to have a come as you are policy. No guns, no violence. Just come as you are.
What is your message to these? Because you've seen the viral videos. For example, Prime 36, there were 30 plus people that broke through the gate, ran in there, stole almost all the inventory. We're seeing, there was also the Lake Merritt case where he was a good Samaritan. His car was broken into. He sees the guys breaking into another car, and then they shot and killed him trying to intervene. And we're seeing people being gunned down over a camera that is not worth much. What is your message to people committing such crimes in your city?
My message wouldn't be to those people. And it's weird. And it's not that I'm saying, oh, I agree with what you're doing. I don't feel like no one should be innocently a victim of violent crimes for no apparent reason, especially for materialism or for monetary exchanges. I don't believe that anyone should lose their life for something like that. But what I am aware of is that poverty forces us to do things that sometimes we don't necessarily think about. There has been a time in everyone's life that have been involved in poverty where they did something that they may have later learned to regret, and they may have wished that they weren't in a position to have to do that, or if they ever got into a better position, that they did their best to try to repay what it was that they may have stolen and that they may have taken. I only pray that these individuals that are involved in some of these things live long enough to get to that level of understanding. And I hope that those that are watching understand that when you have a lack of opportunity and when you have a lack of funds or a lack of hope and a lack of love and a lack of concern, this is the children that were banned from the village coming back to destroy the village. And in the destruction of our village, we have to be mindful of caring for all of these kids and nurturing them. I don't believe that there are bad children. I do believe that along that child's life, there's been an adult to the lead to the delinquency of his understanding and his perception, as far as promoting poison to them and allowing them to normalize the poison. And they've grown up with that. And now they're just acting out of ways where they feel like this is normal. This is how we live. This is what we do. To all of the victims and the businesses that have been ravished with these crimes, and vandalized, stolen from, burglarized, so on and so forth. It's hard to tell someone don't take it personal. But it's the poverty, the lack of hope. I'll give a small story real quick. Someone broke into my car. And
Recently?
Uh-huh. And I had my iPhone finder on there. And the phone, the GPS took me to
Like the AirTag?
when you do your iPhone finder, like if you lose your phone,
Where's my iPhone?
where's my phone?
Your phone was in your
So
car?
my phone was in the car.
Oh boy.
So I went to follow the thing to find where the phone was. When I pull up, it's a guy there. I get out the car. I'm like, hey man, my thing is saying my phone is here. Now it may not have been this cool as I'm being cool right now. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh man, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, man, listen, I just need my phone. I got some important contacts in that phone. I don't want no problems. We can just say it was a misunderstanding. He like, man, the phone under the car. So he goes under the car, gets the phone, gives me my phone back. It's like, man, I don't want no problems. So when I get my phone, I go in my pocket and I give him a couple dollars. And he's looking, he's like, what's this for? I said, I know it wasn't personal. I know whatever it is that you're doing to do whatever you're doing, it's out of a means of survival. Whether you got to do it to eat, or whether some demons are eating you to feel an addiction, or whatever it may be. I don't want to judge you. But I appreciate you, man, and keep faith, man. And it was so mind-blowing because he was so shocked that I gave him something from stealing from me.
Did he know you were Mr. F.A.B.?
He later did, after he looked up and we had a conversation, and I told him, he's like, oh man, I know who you is. But it wasn't personal. It wasn't personal.
Did that happen here? Right
No,
here?
it was in a different part of Oakland.
But it was Oakland.
Yeah, but it wasn't I didn't take it personal. I grew up in a family, man. My mom used drugs. My dad used drugs. I come from them Section 8 homes, man. I know what it's like. And I know that every person that's doing bad is not a bad person. And I've always tried to see the good in individuals. But I think the biggest misconception is that people that's doing bad in these streets, that they bad people. They're not. They just trying to survive, man.
How did you not become one of those people?
And I had a praying grandmother and I had a loving mother. When my mother transitions and got her life together, she devoted her life so I wouldn't have to make those choices and decisions. She put her life on the line. I'm talking about, my mom would pull up to the neighborhood corners and tell the dudes on the corner, listen, I'm willing to die about my son. Don't sell my son no drugs. Don't let him sell no drugs. None of that. Like that's how she was willing to die about that. Like I'm talking about, I distinctively remember her pulling up like, man, you will have to kill me out here if I ever see any of y'all selling my son drugs. And that dedication that she had, it kept me focused.
Wow.
It kept me focused.
And you're emotional.
Because it's real. It's real. Like I'm not afraid to shed tears about where I come from and how I feel about my people and my city and my culture. It's real. I'm not up here for, we doing news reviews. I'm not trying to win a political seat. I'm not doing it for that. I really care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've been doing community events for almost 2 decades. No funding, all out of our pockets. Me going up asking people, man, you want to donate? Standing on a mountain full of no's for 1 yes. Getting rejected by organizations and corporations who feel like, if we can't put our name on it, we don't want to be a part of it. They doing it for the headlines, man. We doing it for the healings. Like I tell people, I was that kid. I was that kid that got left at home, man, because his parents was on drugs. I had to survive.
Do you feel hopeful?
Of course I feel hopeful. I'm alive. Yeah. We in my business right here. We in a place of business that I created. Across the street, I have a nightclub that I named after my mother. I told her I would buy a club and name it after her. Oh. We opening that up next month. I'm hopeful.
What hits you the most about this and brings you to tears?
Is that my children have to grow up in a community like this. My daughter's a teenager. My son, they're gonna have to grow up in this situation. And if somebody don't make a change, it's only gonna get worse. If we don't create institutions that create the next lawyers and judges and doctors and scientists, then the street's gonna connect the next killers, the next rapists, the next burglars.
And what do you want from the community?
People just gotta get back to caring, man.
For sure.
Life has desensitized us.
I mean, you are native here in Oakland, right? And you were saying, and we actually interviewed the chief maybe 3 weeks ago, and he said this is unacceptable. This level of violence that has skyrocketed, particularly during the pandemic, is unacceptable. They're dealing with an officer shortage. They have fewer officers than they ever had. They're only solving 35% of the crimes because they don't have the manpower. I mean, he is saying, you know, he's never seen Oakland like this. And how would you say, as an Oakland native who's been here, who's so entrenched in this community, is this the worst that you've seen?
I think it's more visible. It's more visible due to the fact that everybody's recording. You know, everybody's recording. Every time there's a crime committed, there's somebody who has a phone who may be filming from the car.
If it's not stolen,
You know,
like
it's not,
yours.
you know, so.
Do you feel safe in your hometown for you and your family?
My source of safety is coming from a higher power. You know, I feel I'm in my phase of my purpose. And the reflections of my protection has been shown
Yeah.
in many examples. And so
I mean, thank you for doing the work, because you're
sure.
helping the kids, and that's where it
I'm
really
definitely not
starts.
gonna stop doing the work.
You know, the chief also said a lot of these kids, some are as young as 11 years old, that are carjacking, you know, involved in carjackings and so forth, and they're getting younger and younger. So that's very concerning to him. Did you leave the meeting with anything concrete? Did he pledge anything?
Yeah, most definitely. We had a great conversation. We created the first event that we're gonna do in collaboration, which is December 30th. December 30th, we're doing an event at the Fox Theater.
Oh, good.
The event is in music right now. They have these things called verses,
Yeah.
and you see some of the hip hop.
Were you in a versus?
We're gonna do a versus. So
Okay.
the 30th will be a versus with me and a brother of mine and a peer of mine, whose name is Filthy Rich. He's from East Oakland.
Okay.
Very respectable man in East Oakland. Does a lot of charity work.
Yeah.
And he and I are doing a versus at the Fox Theater December 30th, and the proceeds will go to some nonprofit organizations. A portion of the proceeds will go to some of the sports programs, as well as some of the STEM programs to the kids, and we want to get people involved to be able to be a part of that.
And the OPD will help.
They're going to do
They-
what the OPD agreed to do is they're going to do free security for the night. So they're going to have all the officers out tonight. The Fox was like trying to get Fort Knox, you know, was trying to get inside of Fort Knox to be able to get that. They went out of their way to meet with Libby Schaff for her to okay it, and several other security
Like-
as well as the finance part of it, getting the Fox.
They will, oh, they'll cover the cost?
Yeah.
Or they'll?
Yeah, they're covering the cost. They're covering the cost of the Fox as well as the cost for the security. The Fox on any given night for whole staffing would be 30 to 50,000. To have the police department and the numbers that we're going to need would be about another 20,000. So we do those numbers, we're looking at about 60 to 70,000 that the chief, LaRon Armstrong, Chief Armstrong has pledged to being able to facilitate that, as well as Aaron Smith, the lieutenant. And that's just the start of what we plan to do in the community as far as utilizing our forces, utilizing our relationships to help cultivate some opportunities and possibilities in the city.
I'm happy to see that.
Yeah.
Aaron was the other, the lieutenant in the
Lieutenant.
photo, right?
Lieutenant
And
Aaron
how long
Smith.
was the meeting?
It was supposed to be 20 minutes. We ended up talking for like 2 hours.
Wow, and it was at OPD?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, we ended up talking.
It's too bad they didn't let you, they wanted it to be.
Yeah, it was closed net of us figuring out some ideas that could bring towards some restoration.
Yeah.
You know, this is a big It's a big step for a rapper to sit down and meet with the chief of police.
How hard was that meeting to get? Because we request meetings with the chief, we don't always get that.
As I said, man, that's been a lifetime friend of mine. The beauty of him freeing up his schedule and abdicating away from certain interviews that he may have had possibly scheduled and some other things, some meetings. But it also goes to show you his care and he's actually concerned and looking for an alternative route. You know, you can't just arrest the problem away. People think that's the thing. We can't just arrest the problem away, because then those jails will become full and we'll begin to see what we're seeing. We're seeing inmates dying at a high alarming rate as well, inside while they're already incarcerated, because the jails are packed. The jails are packed with rival neighborhoods and things of that nature, and it's crazy there.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, you can't arrest the problem away, and you can't just throw money at it. We have to create these places and these safe spaces and safe zones for people to actually indulge in their creativity.
Yeah.
For a kid to be unadulteratedly who they are and unapologetically creative.
Yeah.
These are the things that need to happen. Because even though these young kids, 11, 12 years old, may be out here committing these crimes, some of these kids are very brilliant. They just never had nobody tell them that they were brilliant, or never had anybody recognize their brilliance.
Well, I hope they watch this and apply for your academy.
Man, I hope. The beauty of it is I want to be able to get involved with some of the organizations that, you know, have a surplus amount of money, that are willing to dedicate some money to something that actually affects the people, an effective change. The biggest thing with a lot of these corporations is they have all the money and they go out and they touch the people that they can get in contact with. And most of these people, they're just spokesmen for they're like they're stand-ins.
Right.
We're going directly to the people that need it most.
Yeah.
When we do our giveaways or when we do our food drives, we're going in those homeless encampments. We're going into the tents and making sure people get it directly. When we give our socks and covers drives, we're going to those spots. The spots where these corporations and these other people, they're afraid to go.
Yeah.
You can't be for the people and not with the people.
Well, I'm glad the community has someone like you.
Man, I just want to inspire others.
Yeah. We need more of you.
Come on. And it's possible. So when
Thank
you
you
ask me,
so
am I
much.
hopeful? I am.
That's good. We always have to be, right?
For sure.
I mean, as you said, a lot of this is being shown on social media, but we have had just a rash of brazen robberies, not just here, South Bay, East Bay.
It's going on around the country, B. This is what's going on.
Los Angeles.
Everywhere,
it's
everywhere.
But it seems like more of it was happening here or started here, but now the whole state of California is seeing it. So I'm glad your store has not been.
We've been protected by higher cause.
I'm glad to hear it.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.